Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
They brought out the cake, and that's when I knew they hadn't just forgotten me. They'd erased me. 3 layers, white fondant, gold trim, one of those edible photos printed on top. Diane was beaming, the kind of smile that stretches a little too wide for the cameras. Everyone clapped, flashbulbs popped, waiters leaned in with sparklers. And me? I was standing by the wall. No chair, no place card, not even a damn bread plate. Before that, I'd been holding on to hope. Maybe they were just late setting up. Maybe someone double-booked a seat and they'd fix it. I'd planned this whole Roman dinner down to the minute. It couldn't be intentional. But when the cake came out, and I saw 12 names written around the base in gold script, like the credits at the end of a movie, my name wasn't there. That's when it stopped being a mistake. That's when it became a message. Valerie didn't even look my way. She was already raising a glass of Prosecco, toasting to her mother's incredible legacy. Her voice hit that high, performative pitch she used for galas and donors. Across from her, her brother Carter mimed wiping a tear. I took one step back, then another. Nobody noticed. Or they did, and pretended not to. The maitre d' met me near the entrance. He whispered something in Italian I didn't catch. I gave him a nod, calm, like none of it stung. Like I wasn't seconds from walking into traffic just to scream. But instead, I walked across the street, found a small cafe, ordered an espresso. Then I opened my phone. They didn't know I was the guarantor on every reservation, every tour, every driver. They didn't know the Amalfi Villa hadn't even been paid in full. I was floating the difference. They didn't know I had eyes on the group chat they'd made without me. But they were about to. Because while Diane made her birthday wish, and everyone laughed like they hadn't just cut me from the photo, I hit cancel on the next week of their lives. No villa, no wine tour, no legacy, just a cake with 12 names, and a very expensive bill no one could pay. And me? I'd be gone long before the sparklers stopped burning. I didn't sleep that night. After I canceled the dinner and wiped every future reservation off the map, I just walked. Rome was quiet after midnight. That kind of old, slow quiet that makes your thoughts louder. I passed fountains, backlit ruins, souvenir stands halfway packed. My phone buzzed once, Valerie. I turned it off. The first time I met her, she wore navy silk and walked like every hallway belonged to her. It was her father's retirement gala, an absurdly over-the-top affair at the top of the Hancock Building in Chicago. I was 29, barely a year into running my event firm full-time, still double-checking every contract myself and packing my own uplights into vans at 2 a.m. She approached me near the end of the night, said she liked the centerpiece layout, asked if I designed them. I didn't. My assistant had, but I said yes anyway, just to keep the conversation going. I couldn't believe she was talking to me. Valerie looked like the kind of woman who ate 5-star meals 3 times a day and had a standing blowout appointment with someone named Jean-Luc. I looked like a guy who still kept a Costco pizza in the freezer, just in case. But she kept texting, kept showing up at networking events she normally wouldn't bother with, asked questions about my company, laughed at jokes I didn't even mean to make. The whole thing felt like some rich girl dare at first, but it kept going. She kept showing up, and I fell for her. Hard. We started dating. Her family pretended not to notice at first, like I was a temporary thing they could outlast. But when we hit a year and I was still around, they started showing their teeth in subtle ways. Her father, George, played it smooth. He was all handshakes and casual golf invites like he was vetting me for some invisible job I hadn't applied for. But Diane? That woman could freeze a furnace. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. She just weaponized tone. Once we were at their place in Lake Forest for dinner. Long table. Staff in and out like clockwork. I made some harmless comment about growing up in Illinois. Mentioned Peoria, where I was raised. Diane paused, folded her napkin real slow, and smiled without showing a single tooth. "You've done well," she said, lifting her glass. "For someone from, what was it?" Peoria. Like I had climbed out of a gutter and showed up in her dining room uninvited. Valerie didn't blink, didn't flinch. Just topped off her mother's wine like she hadn't heard it. I laughed it off at the time, told myself I was overreacting, that I was lucky to even be sitting at that table. I didn't realize that was the first warning. That moment right there was Diane's way of planting a flag. You're not one of us. You're just visiting. Still, I stayed, because I thought Valerie saw something in me the others didn't. I thought I was the exception, the outsider they'd grow to respect once I proved myself. So I poured myself into the work, expanded the company, landed national clients, even started managing some of the Montgomery Foundation's events, galas, benefit auctions, a couple high-profile retreats. I figured it was a way to earn my place. But with every check I wrote, every favor I pulled, every dinner where I stayed silent while someone cracked a joke at my expense, I lost a little more of myself. I just didn't know it yet. Not then. That came later, when Rome reminded me exactly how much I didn't belong. When Valerie asked me to move in, I said yes before she finished the sentence. It was in her old condo on East Lake Shore Drive. All white walls, steel fixtures, and furniture so modern it hurt to sit on. I showed up with a single suitcase and a duffel bag. She laughed, said, "That's it?" Like I was some college kid crashing for the summer. I shrugged. Most of what I owned didn't match her world anyway. From then on, it was full speed. Her family started looping me into everything. Not personally, not like I was one of them, but professionally. They needed someone to run their gala for the Historical Preservation Board. I got the call. They needed help with a private dinner for an investor from Dubai. I handled it. Their son Carter was trying to break into politics? Suddenly I was planning a $250,000 donor event at the Four Seasons, and they paid when they felt like it. Sometimes it was, just send the invoice to Diane. Other times it was, talk to my assistant, or, this one's a gift, right, Nick? I was working 12-hour days to make their lives sparkle, and they treated me like a fancy clipboard. Valerie thought it was flattering. "They trust you," she said once, when I came home fuming after Diane told me to wear black and blend in at an event I planned from scratch. "They don't ask just anyone to handle these things." I wanted to believe that, but then came the wedding. Well, their wedding. I was just the guy in the tux. Diane orchestrated the entire thing like a Broadway show. She picked the venue, chose the caterer, flew in some floral designer from Vancouver. My only job? Pick up the parts of the bill she didn't feel like covering, which turned out to be most of it. I paid for the band, the lighting, the after-party, and the honeymoon flights. When I suggested we scale things back just a little, Diane said, and I quote, "You don't want Valerie to start married life in disappointment, do you?" Valerie never said a word. Not when her mom changed our menu behind my back. Not when I got bumped to a secondary table at our own rehearsal dinner because that's where the logistics team is sitting. Not once in 5 years did she speak up. I told myself I was being dramatic. That she loved me. That this was just the cost of marrying into a family like that. You play the game, you get the perks. But holidays were the worst. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every July 4th brunch, I got stuck at the far end of the table. Once they put me between their housekeeper and their estate attorney. No one said it out loud, but it was always the same message. You're not one of us. You're adjacent, support staff with a ring. And every time I looked down the table at Valerie, laughing with her siblings, passing sides, clinking champagne flutes, I waited for her to notice, to say something, anything. She never did. She'd kiss my cheek on the way out, tell me she was proud of how graceful I'd been, like I was a show dog who didn't bark during fireworks. And still, I stayed. Still told myself it would change, because I loved her. And that was my mistake. The Rome trip was Diane's idea, but Valerie pitched it like it was her personal love letter to her mother's legacy. "Something iconic," she said, flipping through venue photos on her tablet. "It needs to feel timeless, European elegance, generational wealth kind of thing." She said that last part with a smirk, like I was supposed to take it as a compliment. We were sitting in our kitchen, well, her kitchen, while I typed notes and compared vendor contracts. She had a yoga mat laid out behind her, barely touched, coffee gone cold in one hand. I nodded along, already 3 steps ahead, drafting a timeline in my head. Rome for 4 nights, then a private villa in Amalfi, followed by a wine tour in Tuscany with exclusive vineyard access. The kind of itinerary that sounded like a travel magazine headline. Valerie barely lifted a finger. She just forwarded emails with vague instructions. Mom wants a string quartet here, or make sure the driver speaks French. I handled the rest: flights, transfers, hotels, reservations, permits for the Vatican tour. The whole thing ran through my company's back-end systems, because that's what I do. Make the impossible look effortless. At first, I didn't even think twice about the money. I paid deposits with my business card to keep things moving. It wasn't unusual. Her family always reimbursed, eventually, but then the reimbursements started coming late, or not at all. I'd follow up with her brother, Carter. He'd text back something like, "Oh shoot, thought Dad handled it. Following up now." But nothing would land. Then wires started bouncing. I got an alert from my accounting team. I brushed it off. Maybe a routing issue. Then another payment failed. Then another. I checked the joint account Valerie and I shared, the one we only used for household things. It was almost empty. The savings account we were supposed to be using for future real estate? Gutted. A few $1,000s left, and a bunch of withdrawal records that didn't match anything I'd authorized. I opened her laptop while she was in the shower one morning. I didn't feel good about it. I wasn't proud of it. But something felt off, like the ground was shifting and only I could feel it. I found a folder on her desktop called Project Bianca. Thought it was a client name at first, maybe something for the foundation. It wasn't. Inside were screenshots of plane tickets, one-way tickets to New York, a rental lease, a list of OB/GYN clinics in Manhattan, and messages. Dozens of them, between her and Brandon. Yeah, him. Brandon, her ex from college, the one she swore she hadn't spoken to in years, the one she said she blocked. He hadn't been blocked. The messages were recent, flirty, intimate. One of them said, "Can't wait to see you in Rome." Another, "Told Nick yet?" My stomach turned. I sat there frozen while the shower kept running upstairs, message after message. He's still oblivious. He's so focused on logistics he doesn't even look at me anymore. It's better this way. Cleaner. Baby will have your last name anyway. I remember rereading that one 5 times. Baby. I clicked over to a document in the same folder. It was a draft separation agreement, full of legalese, clearly drawn up by a firm her family kept on retainer. My name wasn't listed as a partner on anything. The payout was a joke. The tone of the whole thing was sanitized, polished, like a press release dressed up as divorce papers. They even had a script. After much reflection, we've decided to part amicably. Nick remains a valued friend. We're grateful for the memories. I felt like I was being quietly murdered by a PR team. I sat there, jaw locked, eyes dry. I couldn't even feel the anger yet. Just the cold realization that while I was planning the celebration of their family's name, they were planning how to carve me out of it. That night, Valerie climbed into bed like nothing had changed, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted to book the Amalfi chef yet or wait until we saw the kitchen layout. I smiled, said I'd handle it tomorrow, and I did. But not the way she thought. By the time we landed in Rome, they'd already started freezing me out. It was subtle at first, a change in the group texts, a dinner reservation that somehow couldn't be expanded. I chalked it up to chaos, 11 people traveling across time zones, jet lag, delays, different tastes. I gave them the benefit of the doubt. By day 3, that benefit had expired. They stopped sending me the itinerary updates. I'd find out about lunches after they were over, when I'd get a notification that the group car had been rerouted to a winery I didn't know was on the list. Valerie waved it off every time. "It's just logistics," she kept saying. "You know how it goes. Things shift." She always said it with that same tight little smile, the one she used with hotel staff when she wanted something comped without sounding rude. Carter made a joke one morning over breakfast, the one I had at a table for one, by the way, about how I'd make a killer tour manager. Diane laughed into her croissant and said I was in my element, keeping everyone's schedules in order. I wanted to throw my coffee in the Tiber. Instead, I smiled. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. They let me tag along on exactly one group activity, a guided Vatican tour I'd booked through a private agency. Everyone arrived late, then disappeared halfway through to shop near Piazza Navona. I stayed with the guide and finished it alone. That night, I was accidentally booked at a separate table during dinner. The maitre d' looked confused. My name wasn't on the list. Carter joked, "You know how Rome is with seating. Ancient systems." Diane didn't even look up from her wine menu. Valerie pulled me aside later and whispered, "Don't make it a thing. Don't make it a thing." They were erasing me in real time and wanted me to be quiet about it. The next morning, I walked into the hotel's business center. I needed to print out a few confirmations for an Amalfi boat tour. While I waited for the printer to warm up, a woman next to me was picking up a large batch. Glossy color prints, collated and stapled. She slid one off the top and held it toward me. "I think this one's yours," she said. "Your name's on the account." My stomach dropped. The header read, "Diane Montgomery's 70th birthday. Final dinner seating plan. 12 names, 12 seats. Nick will not be dining with us." In bold. I stood there for a full minute staring at it, like the words might rearrange themselves if I blinked hard enough. They didn't. My name, my actual legal name, had been printed at the bottom under logistics and vendor liaison, like I was part of the catering staff. That was the moment. The moment the air went still and the white noise in my head shut off. That missing seat wasn't a mistake. It was the exclamation point. Their silent little strategy had reached the end game, and I wasn't part of it. Not the dinner, not the trip, not the family. They had spent the whole week phasing me out like background noise, like a contractor whose job was almost done. But what they didn't count on? I was the one with the contracts. Every hotel room, reserved through my corporate portal. The Amalfi Villa, deposit paid by my company card. The vineyard, the drivers, the 5-course birthday dinner Diane wouldn't shut up about, all under my name, all in my system. I held that piece of paper in one hand and pulled out my phone with the other. Just stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the app. I didn't press it yet. Not yet. Because when I ended this thing, and I would, I wanted to do it at the perfect moment. Not out of anger, out of precision, out of power. They had their seat chart. I had the master list. And I wasn't leaving this city until every single one of them learned what it feels like to be uninvited. I didn't slam the door when I left the restaurant. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look back. I walked out like I was just stepping away to take a call. Calm on the outside, stomach burning a hole through my spine. The cafe across the street had a faded awning and a half-dead lavender plant in the window. Perfect. I slid into the farthest booth, ordered a macchiato, and pulled out my phone. First, the restaurant. La Via Sera, exclusive buyout, prepaid prefix. I opened the vendor portal, hit modify, then cancel. One click and the full payment disappeared. A red banner popped up confirming the cancellation. I leaned back as my card was refunded. That reservation was under my business license, not theirs. The Montgomerys hadn't even seen the invoice yet. Next, the Amalfi Villa. 3 stories. Private pool, staffed kitchen, Seaview Terrace. Gone. They were still 3 days out, plenty of time to recover the deposit. I requested the refund, rerouted it to my company account. Vatican tour, vineyard lunch, black car transfers, all gone. Click, click, click. By the time the waiter set the coffee down in front of me, their entire itinerary had been deleted from existence. I stirred the sugar in slowly, deliberately. It was the best sip I'd had in months. I checked my watch. They'd be finishing their appetizers now. Toasting. Diane probably going on about the risotto. Carter pretending to care. Valerie smiling at the table like she hadn't carved me out of it 3 nights ago. Perfect. I got up, paid in cash, and took the side alley around the back of the restaurant. I knew the layout. I'd toured it myself during planning. The kitchen had a service entrance that led directly to the hallway behind the private dining room. I slipped in through the staff door, nodded once to the sous chef who was too busy flambeing veal to question anything, and stood in the shadows behind a folding screen near the prep table. That's when I saw it. The cake. White tiers stacked high, delicate gold filigree around the edges, fresh figs and lavender sprigs cascading down one side. Custom designed, hand-carried from a boutique bakery in Trastevere. And now, it was being wheeled back out, not to the dining room, to the kitchen. I watched the pastry chef say something in Italian, his hands up in confusion. The waiter pushing the cart just shook his head and pointed toward the office. That's when I knew. It had started. I slipped into the corridor and found a quiet spot behind a linen rack. From there, I had a clear view of the private room. Through the gap in the door, I saw a manager, the tall one with the buzzed head, standing at the table, speaking with authority. Diane's face was frozen mid-smile. Carter was already on his feet, gesturing wildly. Valerie had her phone out, scrolling. I knew what she was seeing. Reservation canceled by account holder. Please contact the venue for rescheduling. The waiter came back with the check. I saw him place it carefully in front of George, Diane's husband. George pulled out his card, passed it over without looking. A few seconds later, the waiter returned, said something quietly. George looked up, eyes wide. He handed over another card, then another. I didn't need to hear the words to know what was happening. The bill was north of 5,000 euros, and I had been the guarantor. No Nick, no payment, no service. The kitchen stopped sending food. The lights in the back corner dimmed. I stood in that hallway, unseen, watching their faces start to shift. Smiles fading, voices rising. Diane was talking to the manager now, red-faced, finger raised. Carter pulled out his phone and walked away from the table, probably calling the family lawyer. And Valerie, still scrolling, until she stopped, stared. I knew the moment she read the text I'd scheduled to send 10 minutes ago. All canceled. Your move. She looked up. Her eyes searched the room, but I was already gone. From the side entrance, I had the best seat in the house. The restaurant staff stood at attention. Not angry, just confused, polite, waiting. The manager was speaking slowly and clearly, English with a Roman accent. The account used to hold the reservation has been canceled. We require full payment up front before continuing service. That's when Diane stood up. Her chair screeched across the marble. She jabbed her finger in the manager's face and launched into this bizarre blend of English, Italian, and pure Montgomery entitlement. What is this, una truffa? You think we don't pay? We are clients, we are prestige. The manager didn't blink. Madam, we have your name, but the reservation was under Nicholas Lawson. He withdrew the funds. It's no longer active. Her husband, George, tried to smooth things over, the way he always did when Diane's fuse ran out. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out his Cartier, and placed it on the table like a gambler out of chips. This watch is worth more than the dinner. Just hold it while I transfer. No, sir, the manager said flatly. We do not accept personal items as collateral. It was beautiful. Valerie was still in her seat, phone in hand, not even blinking. She'd read my message at least 3 times by now. All canceled. Your move. I let them stew in it another few seconds. Then I stepped out of the shadows, walked straight through the kitchen corridor, and into the dining room like I'd just come back from the restroom. Diane froze. Carter looked like he'd seen a ghost. Valerie? Her eyes snapped up the second she heard my footsteps. Nick, she started, but I cut her off. Not family, remember? Silence. All I could hear was the hum of the AC and someone scraping a plate in the kitchen behind me. Diane's mouth opened, then shut. George sat down slowly, like if he moved too fast, he might faint. Carter muttered something under his breath that ended in bullshit. Valerie finally stood. Nick, can we talk? No. I didn't raise my voice, didn't even look at her directly. I don't need an explanation, I said. I've already seen everything. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and scrolled, just once for effect. I didn't even open the files. Just let the folder title hang there long enough for her to see. Brandon, baby, separation agreement drafts. She paled. I saw her hand tighten around her wine glass. Carter stepped forward. You hacked her stuff? I tilted my head. I booked this entire trip on my business system. Your emails, your shared drives, your travel bookings, they ran through my servers. If you didn't want me to see it, you probably shouldn't have named the folder Plan B. George looked up sharply at that. Valerie's face cracked. Nick, she said, voice low now, almost pleading. It's not what you think. It never is. I turned to Diane, who still hadn't sat down. By the way, your vineyard tasting's off. They wanted confirmation by noon. No one answered. She was trembling. For real this time. The red in her cheeks was starting to fade. Her voice shook as she muttered, You blindsided us. I raised my eyebrows. You left my name off the guest list. That's not blindsiding? Carter stepped in again, hands out like I was holding a weapon. You're being dramatic, man. Really? I said. Because I've got copies of every bounced payment your family's sent me in the last 4 months. I've got access logs showing your mother tried to backdate reimbursements using foundation funds. And I've got screenshots of offshore transfers made to a holding account in Zurich under Valerie's name. The color drained from his face. Valerie sat down again. Like I said, I added, sliding my phone back into my pocket. Not family. Then I turned toward the exit. Valerie called after me once. Nick, wait. I stopped, just long enough to look over my shoulder. She looked desperate, like she still thought this was salvageable, like there was still a chance I'd fold, like I always did. You knew this was coming, I said. You just didn't expect me to finish the job before dessert. And with that, I walked out, past the stunned waitstaff, past the cake still sitting on its trolley, past the reservation board now showing closed private event canceled. I didn't even look back. I boarded the plane early, didn't even bother with a carry-on. Just my passport, wallet, and a pair of noise-canceling headphones I'd bought on a whim at the Rome airport. First-class seat, full recline, champagne I didn't touch. Paid for entirely in points, loyalty rewards from 5 years of booking luxury for a family that never considered me part of it. Seemed fitting. I didn't sleep on the flight, just stared out the window, clouds drifting by like nothing had happened. Like the sky didn't care I'd just detonated my marriage in a foreign country. By the time we landed at O'Hare, my inbox had exploded. Messages from caterers, drivers, hotel managers, all confused about last-minute cancellations. One from George's assistant marked URGENT. I ignored it. Let them clean up their own mess for once. Next stop, home. I didn't even go inside. I had scheduled movers before I left Rome. Gave them access codes, sent them a list, take everything with my name on it, leave the rest. They followed it to the letter. When I walked into my new apartment 2 days later, my clothes were in the closet, my books lined up on the shelf, and the TV was gone. I left it behind on purpose. Along with the designer suits Diane had gifted me, the Rolex George slipped into my sock drawer after I nailed his precious real estate summit, and the engraved cufflinks from Valerie with the initials NVL, as if I needed to be branded to fit. I didn't need any of it. I just wanted out clean. My lawyer got everything next. The screenshots, the contracts, the payment trails. I sent it all with a single message. Do what you do best. No mercy. 3 days later, Valerie showed up at my new door. No warning, no text. She looked rough. Not like crying in the car rough. More like hadn't slept. Hadn't eaten. Real life is finally hitting me rough. Hair in a ponytail. No makeup. Hoodie probably stolen from my side of the closet. She knocked once, softly. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Her eyes were already wet. Nick, I know I messed up. You didn't mess up, I said flatly. You executed a plan. I just wasn't supposed to see the blueprints. She swallowed. We can fix this. We can figure it out. No, I said. You already fixed it. You just didn't expect me to finish the job. She stared at me like she didn't understand the words, but I could see the flicker in her eyes. The one that told me she did understand. She just didn't like the answer. Goodbye, Valerie. I shut the door, didn't slam it, didn't lock it after, just walked back to my desk and kept working. A week later, the real fire started. The SEC filed an inquiry into George's real estate firm. I saw the headline on Bloomberg before the Montgomerys even made a public statement. Federal review launched into Montgomery Holdings' offshore transactions. I didn't tip them off. I didn't need to. Everything they sent me over the years, every desperate payment dodge, every backdated consulting fee to hide the reimbursements, had been in my system. They used my platforms. My team archived every document, every signature. I handed my lawyer the key and walked away. But the universe wasn't done yet. 2 days after the SEC news broke, I got a text from an unknown number. Just a screenshot of a baby's hospital band, Brandon Montgomery Jr. Mother, Valerie Montgomery, born 3 weeks early. Same week the Boston Tribune ran their front page. Old money, new trouble. How the Montgomery Empire started to crumble. I didn't respond. Didn't comment. Didn't even forward the article. I just closed the tab and sat in silence. I felt light. Not happy. Not smug. Just unburdened. Like I'd finally stopped carrying a suitcase that was never mine to begin with. Valerie came back one last time. Not to apologize. Not really. She came with a lawyer and a folder labeled proposals. She sat across from me in my attorney's office. No makeup this time, just clean, polished, the way she looked when she wanted something. "I think we can both agree this doesn't need to get messy," she said softly, like we were settling a bill over brunch. I didn't say anything, just let my lawyer slide the counter-proposal across the table. No NDA, no gag order, no shared property, just a clean break. Me walking away with everything I came in with, plus a list of assets they'd tried to sneak into their family trust behind my back. Her eyes scanned the paper, but she already knew what it said. Her hand hesitated over the pen. She looked at me like I was supposed to offer something. Comfort, negotiation, maybe a last chance. I didn't. She signed. That was the last time I saw her in person. A month later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but instinct told me to answer. It was Diane. She didn't bother with small talk. Just said, "We're doing a private fundraiser. Quiet, discreet, a few donors. We'd like to hire your firm." I almost dropped the phone laughing. I cleared my throat and said, "Sorry, I'm booked solid for the rest of the year." She paused. "Really?" I could hear the disdain tucked behind that one word. Diane always had a gift for making curiosity sound like judgment. "Yep," I said. "Turns out people love working with logistics guys." Then I hung up. I sat there for a while, phone still in my hand, thinking about the full circle nature of it. That family had tried to write me out of their lives like a typo, tried to bury me in logistics and make me feel like less than, but I walked out with my spine straight and receipts in hand. Now they tell people I was never really serious, that Valerie rushed into things, that I didn't understand the lifestyle. Diane spins it like I was a hired planner who got too close, but the right people know. The vendors who saw me handle every last detail while their daughter sipped champagne. The lawyers who read every shady transaction they tried to hide. The baby who won't have my name. And me. The man they underestimated one too many times. I don't need revenge stories or front-page headlines. I've got something better. Freedom. Clarity. And the kind of silence that only comes when you know, without a doubt, you were never the broken one. Just the one who finally walked away.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.